America's beloved comedy queen, Carol Burnett, spent decades making millions laugh. But behind that warm smile lived a secret she kept buried for years. There was one man she despised more than anyone else. A man who didn't just hurt her once, but crushed her spirit in ways the public never saw. Who could make someone so kind, so forgiving, harbor such deep resentment? What did he do that Carol couldn't let go, even after all these years? The answer isn't what you expect. It wasn't a rival. It wasn't a stranger. It was someone much closer, someone she trusted completely. Before Carol became the icon we know, before the awards and the fame, this man entered her life and changed everything. The betrayal was personal. The wounds ran deep. And when the truth finally came out, Hollywood couldn't believe it. You think you know Carol Burnett's story? You don't, not yet. Because what happened between them was kept hidden from cameras, from interviews, from everyone, until now. Stay with us. We're about to reveal the truth that Carol carried in silence for decades. The name, the betrayal, and why she truly hated him more than anyone. The man who had everything. Joe Hamilton wasn't just Carol Burnett's husband. He was her producer, her business partner, and the father of her 3 daughters. When they met in 1963, Carol was just starting to become famous. Joe was a talented producer working at CBS. He had charm, good looks, and big dreams. Women noticed him when he walked into a room. Men respected his ideas about television. He knew how to talk to network executives. He understood what audiences wanted to see. Carol fell hard for him. She thought he was different from other men in Hollywood. He seemed to care about her work. He understood comedy in ways that surprised her. He would watch her rehearse and give helpful notes. He made her feel safe in an industry that could be cruel to women. He didn't try to change her. He celebrated her talent. In 1963, they got married in a small ceremony with just close friends and family. Carol believed she had found her perfect partner. She thought their love would last forever. For the first few years, everything seemed wonderful. Joe helped Carol develop her variety show. He believed in her vision when network executives had doubts. He fought for her creative freedom. The Carol Burnett Show premiered in 1967 and became a massive success. Millions of people watched it every week. Carol was becoming one of the biggest stars in America. The show won awards. Critics praised her talent. She was finally getting the recognition she deserved. Joe stood beside her through it all. He produced the show with skill and dedication. He made important decisions about guests, sketches, and timing. He handled the business side while Carol focused on performing. He dealt with budgets, contracts, and studio politics. Everyone in Hollywood saw them as the perfect couple. They attended parties together. They smiled for photographers. They had 3 beautiful daughters who seemed happy and healthy. They had money, fame, and success. From the outside, their life looked like a fairy tale. People envied what they had built together. But behind closed doors, something else was happening. Something Carol didn't see coming. Joe wasn't the man she thought he was. He had secrets that would destroy everything. He had plans that didn't include her in the way she believed. And slowly, without Carol realizing it, he was setting up the biggest betrayal of her life. The foundation of their marriage was already cracking, but Carol was too busy to notice. The warning signs started small. Joe would come home late from the studio with thin excuses. He would take phone calls in private and walk into another room. He started spending more time away from the family on weekends. He said he was working on new projects. He claimed the network needed him for meetings. Carol trusted him completely, so she never questioned any of it. She was too busy working 12-hour days, raising their daughters, and making America laugh every week. She had no reason to doubt the man she loved. What Carol didn't know was that Joe was building a separate life. A life where she wasn't the center of his world anymore. A life where he was planning his own future without her by his side. He was making choices that would benefit him alone. He was protecting his interests while Carol remained unaware. The truth would come out eventually, but by then, it would be too late to stop the damage he had already done. The betrayal that changed everything. In 1982, Carol's lawyer stumbled upon something in the business paperwork that made him pause. At first glance, it seemed routine. Joe had established a new production company called Hamilton Productions. Many producers had their own companies, so on the surface, it didn't raise alarms. But when the lawyer dug deeper, a disturbing truth began to emerge, one that would shake Carol to her core. Joe had quietly taken several of the ideas and characters from the Carol Burnett show and registered them under his new company. These weren't just any sketches. They were Carol's creations, born from her imagination, her voice, and her unique comedic timing. One glaring example was the character Mama, who would later become the central figure in the spin-off Mama's Family. Carol had created Mama. She had performed her hundreds of times, breathed life into her, and made audiences laugh until they cried. Yet legally, Mama belonged to Joe Hamilton. Carol's name was nowhere to be found. It wasn't listed as creator or co-owner. The very things that were extensions of her artistry had been claimed by the man she had loved, trusted, and built a life with. When Carol confronted Joe, she expected guilt, an apology, even shame. But what came instead was a chilling declaration that cut deeper than any argument ever could. Joe looked at her with cold, unflinching eyes and said, "You're the talent. I'm the brain. I know how to handle business." Those words struck Carol like a knife. Almost 20 years of marriage, of shared life, of raising children together, meant nothing in that instant. Her own creativity, the essence of her career, was being dismissed as if it were insignificant. Carol's stomach churned as the realization sank in. Joe had planned this carefully. He had waited, biding his time, looking for the perfect moment to separate her work from her ownership, to claim what wasn't his, to profit from her brilliance while denying her rightful credit. This wasn't an impulsive decision, it was calculated. The argument that followed was painful, intense, and deeply personal. Carol demanded answers. She needed to know when this had started, whether Joe had ever truly loved her, or if she had been merely a vessel for his ambition. Joe offered no genuine explanations. He repeated his justification, that as the producer, he deserved ownership. But Carol knew better. Producing a show, managing schedules, cameras, and budgets was one thing. Creating characters, inventing sketches, making people laugh, and pouring heart and soul into the work that was art, and that had always been hers. The betrayal wasn't just professional, it was profoundly personal. This was about respect, recognition, and being valued as the creator she was. Joe's words and actions reduced her to an employee in her own life's work, a person whose talents were exploited for someone else's gain. Carol felt a deep, wrenching hurt that was impossible to articulate. On top of all this, she thought about their daughters. How could she protect them from the ugly truth of their father's deceit? How could she shield them from the looming court battles, the acrimony, the anger? She wanted to keep them safe, yet she also couldn't allow Joe to steal what she had built with her blood, sweat, and talent. She had devoted years to her career, given everything she had to the show, to her family, to their lives, and this was the price she was being forced to confront. The weight of it pressed down on her like a stone, and in that moment, Carol realized the betrayal wasn't just about property, contracts, or money. It was about a lifetime of trust shattered in one cold, calculated move. The secret, life he was hiding. While Carol was grappling with the bitter sting of betrayal in business, an even deeper, more personal shock was waiting for her, one that would shake the very foundation of her life. It happened on an ordinary afternoon at the CBS studios, where the hum of activity and chatter usually filled the hallways. Carol was walking past the production offices, her mind preoccupied with scripts, schedules, and the endless demands of her show, when something caught her attention. Two employees were speaking in the hallway, oblivious to her presence. Their voices carried clearly, and she couldn't help but overhear, "Did you see Joe with that young woman at the restaurant last night? They looked pretty close," one whispered. The other laughed lightly, a sound that felt cruel and jarring in that moment, and replied, "Oh, that's been going on for years. Everyone knows about it." Carol froze mid-step, her heart pounding. Years? How could she have missed something so monumental? Her chest tightened, and the air around her seemed to vanish. It was as if time itself had slowed. The realization hit her like a physical blow. Joe had been living a secret life, a life she had been completely unaware of, right under her nose. Her mind raced, piecing together what now seemed obvious. Those late nights at the studio, the business trips he claimed were essential, the countless evenings he said he was too tired to talk. It all fit together with a cruel precision. Joe had been hiding this double life, and she, trusting and unsuspecting, had been blind. Shaken, Carol walked back to her dressing room, each step heavy and surreal. Memories she had once cherished now felt tainted. The laughter they had shared, the quiet dinners, the stolen moments of tenderness, all seemed like part of a facade she had been unknowingly participating in. That night she returned home, her mind a whirlwind of anger, disbelief, and heartbreak. She confronted Joe directly, her voice trembling yet firm. At first, Joe tried to deny everything, to weave excuses and denials that fell flat against the weight of truth she now held. But when Carol recounted exactly what the CBS employees had said, his face betrayed him. The mask slipped. Finally, Joe admitted it. The affair was real. It wasn't a fleeting moment of weakness. It had been going on for 3 years with a younger woman who worked as an editor. 3 years of deceit, 3 years of returning home, kissing Carol goodnight, and pretending that everything was fine, while his heart, and perhaps his intentions, belonged elsewhere. Carol's questions came sharp and relentless. Why? Why would he destroy the life they had built together? His reasons were shallow: stress, the need for excitement, a restless desire for something new. Excuses that meant nothing to Carol, because in that moment, she realized she didn't even know the man she had loved for nearly 20 years. The worst part, Carol understood with a cold clarity, wasn't just the affair. It was the revelation that Joe had stopped loving her a long time ago. Or worse, maybe he had never truly loved her at all. Maybe she had been valued not as a partner or a companion, but as a ticket to fame, a tool that helped propel him to success. Without her, perhaps he would have remained just another man struggling in television, unnoticed and ordinary. All the trust, all the belief in their shared dreams, now felt like a cruel illusion. Carol had defended him, supported him, believed in him, and all the while, Carol filed for divorce in 1984. She thought it would be simple and clean. They would split their assets fairly and move on with separate lives. But Joe had other plans. He wanted everything he could get his hands on. He hired expensive lawyers from the best firms in Los Angeles. He fought for ownership of the Carol Burnett show properties with fierce determination. He claimed he deserved half of everything Carol had earned during their marriage. He acted like the show's success was entirely because of his work. The court battle lasted for months that felt like years. It was brutal and exhausting. Carol had to sit in courtrooms and listen to Joe's lawyers attack her character. They said she wouldn't have succeeded without Joe's guidance and vision. They said he was the real genius behind the show's popularity. They tried to make it sound like Carol was just a performer who got lucky with good timing. They painted her as someone who needed Joe to succeed. Every word felt like a knife cutting into her heart. Carol was devastated beyond belief. This was the man who used to tell her she was brilliant and talented. Now he was paying lawyers thousands of dollars to tear her down in front of judges and court reporters. The person who was supposed to love her most in the world was trying to destroy her reputation. He sat across the courtroom with a cold face, showing no emotion while his lawyers attacked her. She couldn't recognize him anymore. The legal fees were enormous and kept growing. Carol had to keep working to pay for the lawyers and court costs. She had to go on stage and make people laugh while her personal life was falling apart backstage. Some nights, she would finish a performance with a big smile, then walk to her dressing room and cry until her makeup ran. The stress was overwhelming. She lost weight. She couldn't sleep properly. Friends worried about her health. Her daughters were caught in the middle of this nightmare. They loved both their parents deeply. They didn't understand why their family was being destroyed in such a public way. Carol tried to protect them from the worst details of the divorce. She never spoke badly about their father in front of them. But it was impossible to hide everything. They could see the pain in her eyes every morning. They could feel the tension whenever Joe's name was mentioned at home. They heard whispers from other kids at school. The worst moments came when Joe's lawyers brought up private conversations from their marriage, things Carol had told Joe in confidence years ago during vulnerable moments, things she thought would stay between husband and wife forever. Joe was using her own words against her in court documents. He was willing to humiliate her publicly just to get more money from the settlement. He shared intimate details about their relationship that should have remained private. Carol felt exposed and violated. Carol realized something painful during those long months of legal battles. Joe had never respected her as an equal partner. He had married her because she was becoming famous and successful. He had stayed with her because the show made him rich and powerful in Hollywood. But he had never truly valued her as a person with feelings. She had been a business arrangement to him, nothing more than a stepping stone. Their entire marriage had been built on lies. The divorce was finally settled late in 1984. Carol kept most of her rights to the show and its characters. The court recognized that she was the creator and the star everyone came to see. But the victory felt hollow and empty. She had lost almost 2 years of her life to this bitter fight. She had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on lawyers and court fees. And worst of all, she had lost her ability to trust people easily. The woman who once believed in love had learned a harsh lesson about betrayal. The hatred that never died. After the divorce, Carol tried to move on with her life. She continued working. She raised her daughters. She tried to rebuild herself. But the hatred for Joe Hamilton never went away. It sat in her chest like a stone that wouldn't dissolve. Joe remarried quickly. He married a woman 30 years younger than him. He started a new production company. He acted as if nothing had happened. He never apologized to Carol. He never acknowledged the pain he had caused. He just moved on to his new life. Carol couldn't move on so easily. Every time she saw his name in the credits of Mama's Family, she felt angry. Every time someone mentioned his production work, she had to bite her tongue. The industry still treated Joe like he was some kind of genius. Nobody talked about what he had done to Carol. Friends tried to help Carol heal. They told her to forgive and forget. They said holding on to anger would only hurt her. But Carol couldn't let it go. Some betrayals are too deep to forgive. Some wounds don't heal, no matter how much time passes. In private conversations, Carol was honest about her feelings. She told close friends that she hated Joe. Not just disliked him, not just feel hurt by him, she genuinely hated him. He had taken her trust and destroyed it. He had taken her creations and tried to steal them. He had taken her love and thrown it away for a younger woman. The hatred wasn't loud or dramatic. Carol didn't go on talk shows to bash Joe. She didn't write tell-all books about him. She didn't try to ruin his career. Her hatred was quiet and permanent. She simply removed him from her life completely. She never spoke to him again after the divorce was final. When people asked about her marriage, Carol would give short answers. She would say it didn't work out. She would change the subject. She protected her daughters by not speaking publicly about their father's betrayals. But everyone who knew her well understood the truth. Joe Hamilton had broken something inside Carol that could never be fixed. Joe Hamilton died in 1991 from cancer. He was only 62 years old. When Carol heard the news, she didn't cry. She didn't feel relief. She didn't feel anything at all. That's how deep her hatred had become. The man who had once been the center of her world had turned into someone she felt nothing for. Carol sent white flowers to the funeral. She wrote a note that said, "I wish you peace." But she didn't attend the service. She didn't want to see his face one last time. She didn't want to hear people say nice things about him. She stayed home and let her daughters go without her. Years later, in a rare, honest moment, Carol admitted to a journalist that some wounds never heal. She said, "People think time makes everything better, but sometimes the pain just becomes part of who you are. You learn to carry it, but it never really goes away." That was the truth about Carol Burnett and Joe Hamilton. She hated him more than anyone because he had access to her heart, and he destroyed it. The betrayal came from someone she loved completely. That's the kind of pain that lasts forever. Carol Burnett spent her life making other people happy. She brought laughter to millions of homes. She created characters that became part of American culture. She worked harder than almost anyone in show business. But behind all that success was a woman carrying a secret pain. Joe Hamilton wasn't just another bad relationship. He was the man who taught Carol that love can be a weapon. He showed her that trust can be destroyed. He proved that even the people closest to you can betray you in the worst ways possible. Carol never let that hatred show on camera. She kept working. She kept smiling. She kept being the professional everyone expected her to be. But inside, she carried the weight of what Joe had done to her until her final days. This is the story Hollywood doesn't like to tell. The story of how one of America's sweetest stars learned to hate. The story of betrayal, theft, and broken trust. The story of why Carol Burnett truly hated Joe Hamilton more than anyone. If this story opened your eyes to a side of Carol Burnett you never knew, drop a comment below telling us what you think about Joe Hamilton's betrayal. Was Carol right to never forgive him? We want to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.